Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for episode number 67. Today we're going to be talking with Courtney Underwood about e-commerce tips and how you can improve your e-commerce website. Before we jump into that, I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that I am working on a brand new website, dopebusinessplan.com. It's going to be launching in 2019. And if you are one of the entrepreneurs who are listening to the show every week, you've got great ideas in your head and you haven't quite figured out how to turn those ideas into an actual business, this website is going to be for you. So if you want to stay on top of the information that comes out as I continue to build this website out, go ahead over to dopebusinessplan.com, drop your email and your name, and I will keep you updated as I work on building out the site, building out the course that's going to go along with it, and give you helpful tips and tricks on how you can turn your brilliant business idea into an actual structured business model. All right, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get started with today's show.
Efficient e-commerce websites are simple, especially when you think about, specialty products or, small businesses. You want your product to be front and center, and you don't really want a whole bunch of noise on the page. A lot of times, again, when people are first designing websites, they want all the bells and whistles. They want all these pop-ups. They want some stuff flashing in the corner. They want, to, again, show every option that they've ever even thought about. It's just too much. It's too much noise. It can overwhelm a customer. If they're coming to your site, they're coming for a reason. They want to spend some money. And so you show them the product, and if you have it on the product page, like all the benefits and the social proof, like the reviews and, people wearing it, if that's all on the same page, then they're already convinced. They should just want to add to cart. They don't need a lot of other activity around it. So you want the product, the proof, and how to buy it. That's pretty much it.
Buy Black Podcast, episode 67. 5 small website details that will cause customers to run and never return, with Courtney Underwood. Welcome to Buy Black, the voice of Black business. The only podcast that provides free marketing for growing Black companies, education for budding entrepreneurs, and a reliable place for consumers to find and spend money in quality Black-owned businesses. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you learned something from this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating or review on iTunes. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey everybody, welcome back to Buy Black Podcast, the voice of Black business, live. Today, we're going to be talking with the CEO of Passports and Purpose. I have a hard time saying that all the time. Clothing brand, Courtney Underwood. She reached out to the show a while back. We had a great conversation, and I know today, those of us who are learning entrepreneurs and especially want to get into the e-commerce world entrepreneurs, we are going to learn a ton. Courtney, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm definitely excited to really get into the meat and potatoes of things and talk all things e-commerce.
Absolutely. And so for everybody who jumps in live, if you have questions at any given time, please drop those into the chat and we will definitely get to those as we're going. But as I like to do, starting every episode, I don't like to run my mouth too much. I'm going to hand it over to you. Courtney, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I can be described as 3 things: a speaker, a mentor, and a serial entrepreneur. Those are the top 3 things I use to define myself because I feel like they're all encompassing. When I think about speaking engagements that I typically do, they are really geared around the theme of not only self-care and setting boundaries, but also taking the good to great. That's something that I'm definitely passionate about and scaling up. And also really expanding your horizons and doing the unthinkable. That's something that I usually really talk about in terms of a series that I do. As far as mentorship, I'm definitely passionate about mentoring. I'm born and raised in Chicago, and giving back to the community is something that I'm passionate about in real, tangible ways, not just being a mouthpiece for the community, but actually sowing my time. I think that that's important to actually be on the ground, working with youth, really investing in the next generation, not only monetarily, but also, again, with actual, real time spent. And then the last, but no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you can always make more money, but you can never get more time. So that time a lot of times is way more valuable than a check.
Yeah, it's definitely the most precious resource, and that's why I take it so seriously. So when I think about investing my time, that is a solid commitment that's ongoing. So the last bullet is, of course, is being a serial entrepreneur. I'm currently the founder and CEO of Passports and Purpose. It's a e-commerce retail company that focuses on travel and affirmation, apparel, and accessories. I started that company back in 2016, and it's truly grown beyond my wildest dreams since then. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Love it. So when it comes to Passports and Purpose and versus your entrepreneurship, or I'm sorry, your speaking and your mentoring, chicken or egg, how did those things grow for you?
Speaking and mentoring definitely came first. Passports and Purpose was really born out of that. With the time that I spend investing in the local youth here in Chicago, it was important to me that they get new, enriching opportunities. A lot of the youth that I work with, especially coming from an under-resourced neighborhood in Chicago, they hadn't really been beyond the block. So I'm really passionate about travel. That was definitely my experience growing up. And I wanted to make sure that the youth that I work with, got those opportunities and got them early on. So when it came to expanding horizons and, being introduced to more resources in order to facilitate that, that's where it all started. But a lot of it, even beyond the financial, and access, because a lot of it is political, but beyond the socioeconomic factors, a lot of it was just mental. A lot of the kids that I work with didn't see themselves doing the things that I've done. They didn't see anyone around them really, achieving those goals. No one they knew had a passport. No one they knew had, taken time to learn another language. So when you think about those things, seeing someone that looked like them, that grew up with very humble beginnings, doing those things and coming back full circle really inspired the Passports collection, which is, of course, travel themed. And then shortly after, I would say within the first 6 months, I added the Purpose collection to really speak to those experiences.
Okay. So representation matters.
Yes.
I mean, that's a theme that comes up over and over again. And that's one of the hardest things to get folks outside of the Black community to recognize is that the images that we see on TV, those are not standard to us, right? When you only see your own image reflected through media, you think this is the standard. Everybody can relate to this. And it's hard to get across to people that no, not only can we not relate to it, but when all that our kids see is you or someone who looks like you, it's subconsciously sending that message of you can't live that lifestyle. You can't experience those things. So what are some of the changes or benefits that you've seen come out of the work that you've done in, what's the exposing? That's the word I'm looking for. Exposing the youth in your community to travel.
I've seen them achieve unbelievable things. Honestly, I've seen the kids that I work with not only, travel the world quite literally, go to several countries and really immerse themselves in the culture, but also access to scholarships, access to new jobs, access to internships, really inspiring their friends and their family members. So planting that seed has, grown even beyond my wildest dreams. So having someone, go, start small, go to Canada, go to Mexico, by starting, small, getting that passport and going to the country right next door. And then, taking a leap, taking a bigger risk to, go somewhere even beyond that. And those trips having purpose to them, really being intentional about making connections while you're there and doing more than just, the usual tourist stops. That's not only enriched their lives, but it's enriched my life as well. Just the power of sharing your story and, networking, but also, connecting on a very personal level has really gave rise to a lot of genuine friendships and relationships that are still alive today. So I'm really excited about that and really what that means going forward.
Yeah, I was really fortunate in my adult life to do a lot of travel, but most of my travel and pretty much all my international travel has been military related. And I know the experiences for me as a young man. I went to Iraq when I was 20 years old. So this was 2003, and there's a thing about one. I went to Iraq and I came back home and I had this huge appreciation for Iraqi culture and Iraqi people and Islam. All things that I knew nothing about except for what the news told me to think about them before I went out there. And I came back both with a greater appreciation for their culture, but then also a greater appreciation for what it is to be in America. Because it's a whole different world out there.
It is.
And the same thing later on, in 2010, I went to Afghanistan, and me not learning my lesson, I was still in this mindset of it's like, oh well, I have this huge respect for Iraqi people, but I don't understand Afghans and this, that, and the other, and they're blah blah blah. All this same stupid mess that was in my head. I went to Afghanistan, I came home, and I'm like, oh my god, the Afghan culture, the Afghan people, the this, that, and the other, and it's like every time I left the country, part of my American-centric kind of biased backwards thinking, it gets broken down, right? I learn something about other people and their culture that makes me both appreciate my culture more and learn more of how to expand my culture. And I know if I'm traveling, doing work, people actually traveling and having the time and the experience to just go out and engage with people are going to get even that much more about it. And I feel like we need that a lot more as Black people, because even here in our own country, everything is telling us who and what you are is lesser than, who or what you are is broken. And so not only do we not know much about anybody else, but what we know of ourselves, or what we've been told about ourselves, is not accurate. And it really breaks us down. I wish I had a question in there, but I really was just kind of thinking. I was like, oh my God, this is so true. So talk to me about how then when you moved from that to starting Passports and Purpose, and what made you see that the business was a clothing line, right? How did you come to that?
Sure. So, as a result of all of the conversations I was having and all of the seeds that I was planting, a lot of people, once they begin to have those experiences, they wanted to represent, they wanted to, let people know, even when they're boarding the plane, even when they're just waiting at the gate, even, when they land, they wanted to let people know that they were there with a purpose, that they were there with intention, that, they it wasn't just another trip. They weren't just another traveler. They really wanted to spark some conversation around, what they were doing because they were proud, And so that was a very, heartwarming thing to hear. And so I thought about, how can I do that? What's easily accessible, that's, low overhead, but also very effective. And the thing that immediately came to mind was t-shirts, of course, so if you're wearing a t-shirt, someone asks you about it, and then a conversation happens. And that's really what we sought out to do. And so it started out with the passports and purpose. The passports collection is focused strictly on travel. So you have shirts that say things like "Travel is my self-care" or "Travel taught me," or let's see, one of my favorites is "The best stories are told on the pages of my passport." So when you have, shirts that have meaning, it really sparks conversation to say, where do you get that? If you're wearing a "Travel taught you" shirt, what exactly did travel teach you? What
Yes, that's
lessons
my
have,
first thought.
yeah. And so it's a prompt, to really start conversation. And then even, declarations like "Travel is my self-care." That's a big one. That's something that I personally feel, I feel like I find pieces of myself when I travel. And so, a lot of people can relate to that, just traveling just to, gain new insight, gain new knowledge, discover more about themselves, but also, like you did, thinking about those preconceived notions you had, and beginning to unpack those and do the work. All starts with the shirt, just like, let's have this conversation, and so that's how it started.
I like it. I like it a lot. So yeah, my first thought, especially the best stories are told on the pages of my passport. Like immediately my head said, "Oh, I want to hear one of those stories." Right? It's definitely a conversation starter. What would you say to people who kind of give you that pushback of "I can't afford to"? How do you get people moving out of their comfort zone financially when it comes to travel? Or do you know some tips or tricks or ways that people can start traveling without breaking the bank?
Yes, yes, to both of those. That's the number one pushback that I hear when, I start talking about all things travel. And my immediate response is just to share my experiences. I'm definitely, not the stereotypical traveler when it comes to, the, deals I've gotten and the places I've been. But it's really important to show them, like, okay, this is what I did. This is how I did it. And this is how much I paid, to have these experiences. So it's not just, posting, perfectly positioned selfies on Instagram and saying, hey, look at me, I'm living my best life. It's saying, no, you can too. And this is how I did it. These are the, sites that I frequent. These are the alerts I have set up for airfare deals and specials. It's not, anything, it's not like a secret sauce. It's just a combination of things. And it does take work, but the deals are out there. So I always say that I travel by deal, not destination. I do have some destinations that are on my bucket list, but I am definitely chasing deals to make sure that I'm having, really good experiences without sacrificing quality. I'm not a budget traveler, but I am a value traveler. So, when people say that, they can't afford it, I'm able to share, of how I went to Morocco and spent less than $1,000 for a flight and hotel when,
Wow.
for close to 2 weeks. So,
Oh,
just
wow.
thinking, yeah. So, thinking about that, and this is, a luxury, chain hotel. So it wasn't, like I was, backpacking or in a hostel. It was definitely, a quality experience. And so, it's not saying, okay, if you do this, you'll get this. It's saying if you're open to these dates, if you're open to these destinations, then you can have these experiences. And so it's really just planting those seeds for what's possible. Even thinking about, trips to Nairobi. I've been to Kenya and I absolutely loved it, but it was not expensive. If you search, during certain times of the year, if you're, really on top of those, airfare dips, because they follow trends and patterns just like anything else. So it's really analyzing data, which sounds, boring and tedious, but there are people and, websites out there that do the work for you. You just have to be prompted on know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we jump into the main event, if you've got 2 or 3 of your favorite places to go and find these deals, I would love for you to share those so we can get them in the show notes for folks who are listening.
Sure. So the first site that comes to mind is Skyscanner. It's a website that tracks flight prices, and there's a lot of different search options, which are beyond the, typical, I'm going from here to there on this date. With Skyscanner, you can say, hey, I want to go from this destination to this destination. What's the cheapest month to go? Or or you could do the reverse. Like, I have these dates available. Where in the world can I fly under, $200, under $300? So there's a lot of flexibility when setting the window of time, when setting the budget. And so just by playing around with those search features, you can really see airfare patterns, because a lot of times when you're traveling, airfare is the most expensive part of the trip. It's not necessarily your lodging expenses, it's airfare. And so, for example, next week I'm going to Mexico, Cancun, for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
And
nice.
just by playing, yeah, I'm excited about it. But just by playing around with the dates, I was quite literally able to cut airfare in half, just by leaving a yeah. And so, but, the bigger sites, Expedia and, Orbitz, they don't want to tell you that. So, they'll just say, okay, this is what we have available. If you want it, hurry up and book it. But they won't say, hey, if you leave a day later, your costs can go down, significantly. So, Skyscanner is definitely one of my favorites. Another one is, it's a website called Secret Flying. And Secret Flying is, a website and a blog, but what's really great about it is that every day they're posting deals. You can set it up to have email summaries of deals from your city, just so you know what's available in real time. Because another thing is that when an amazing deal comes your way, you have to be ready to book. You can't say, let me think about it. Oh, let me call some people. Let me try to, get it all together and then book, because it's in real time action. So if you delay, or if you, doubt it, then you're probably going to miss out. So just by having those alerts, I have them synced to my laptop, to my phone, if they're and you can do it like if an airfare from my city is, under this price, because generally speaking, you can know what the baseline is, or you can even know what your personal baseline is. Like, I don't want to pay more than this to go to this city.
Right.
So when that happens, then yeah, you can say, yep, okay, my phone is buzzing. Let me see what it is. Wait, I definitely want this during these dates. Let me book it. And yeah, so as far as being personally, financially responsible and a good steward, I do have money set aside. And it's not necessarily a lot, but it's just intentional about having money taken, out of my profits, or out of, paychecks, or, stipends that I'm getting, and, just diverting it to another account. So I don't even see it. It's already done. So I don't have to rely on myself to manually make a deposit and be consistent with that. So it's just, set up to automatically do it. And, when I first started doing this, it wasn't that much. It was like $25. But, over time, when you think about it, and Oh, it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
And with that, I was, able to fund a couple of trips. So, start small, start where you are. I mean, honestly, you can go from Chicago, you can go, if you find a good deal, you can go to LA, you can go to New York, you can go to Atlanta for under $100 on a major carrier. So it's not
Wow.
like, yeah, if you know when to look, like I never pay more than, unless I'm going for a very specific event. Um, yeah, and it's not like I have to fly Spirit or Frontier or JetBlue, no shade to them because they're in business for a reason, but I don't necessarily have to sacrifice, the quality of my flight, in order just to get to where I'm going. So there's lots of ways to do that. I can talk about that all day.
Yeah, that is so. I love that because those are the things that we really don't see. And so here's a really cool thing. This is kind of off topic, but when I set up our live, I set it up so that only I could see it. And I didn't realize that. So nobody's been in the chat. And my wife was like, she sent me a message and she said, "Hey, are you live right now?" I said, "Yeah. Can you see it?" Because normally there'd be 10, 15 people watching. And she was like, "Nope." And I looked and we were private. So I'm going to, yeah. It's we'll see if people jump in now that they see what's going on. But what I was saying, yeah. So I do love that though because the main sites are the only ones we see, right? We go to places where you have what's the word, where the commercials tell us to go. So knowing these back end channels, and especially something where, like, I don't know if it can do this, but you kind of alluded to it. It would be cool to be like, okay, I know that I want to take vacation sometime within this 2-week period, and
Yep.
I want to pay less than X amount, and then I want my alerts to tell me if a deal comes up in this period of time to go somewhere below this amount, let me know about it. And then you can just go in and buy it. I love that. Yeah,
Yep.
we're gonna have to put that in the show notes. People will definitely want that. I was also, this was just completely off subject, but one of my favorite podcasts I listen to is called The Read. It is hosted by Kid Fury and Crystal, and they are constantly talking about having their Beyonce account. They have a Beyonce account that's already set up that they just put money into consistently. So whenever she drops tickets to a new show, or whenever she has some kind of new apparel that hits the website, they can hit the buy button immediately. It's not even a matter of can I afford it? Am I going to be able to get the rent paid? They put the money aside because they already know Beyonce says she's putting something out. It's going to get bought. So I love that strategy. And you're absolutely right. If we've got the money to put aside for whatever other things, we've got money to put aside to pay for experiences. So people investing in future experiences by putting money aside for travel would be awesome. So we have talked a lot about travel, and we kind of talked about how we move that over into Passports and Purpose and your clothing brand. But really the meat of what we're here to talk about today is how you actually built your business, and the step by step of how someone who has a great business idea where there's purpose behind it, you know that people need it, and you want to turn it into something, but you kind of don't know how. Folks, that is what Courtney is here to do, is to teach us how she built her business from the ground up. And she knows better than I do, which means I need to shut up. Courtney, talk to us. How did you build Passports and Purpose?
Sure. So in 2016, after, knowing that there was a need for shirts and accessories that really reflected the experiences of travelers of color, I, just started doing research, saying, okay, there has to be a way to not only, print these shirts myself, but also, make it sustainable. So it would be a steady, revenue generating activity, not just a hobby. So it was important to note that from the start, I was intentional about branding, and I was intentional about marketing it as a business. So when the first platform that I actually tried was Teespring. So this was back in 2016. I went to the site, and, they make so many promises, right? So it's, low overhead, you just design, we do the selling, you get a profit, everyone's happy. And, I did launch a couple of shirts on that platform and sales did take off. So, no shade to Teespring, but, I did make, a reasonable profit, just from, a couple of shirts in particular. The first is the unapologetic melanin shirt. So it's a checklist, of course, that says melanin, check, education, check, passport, check, these hands, check. And then the subtotal of that is unapologetic, right? So it's like the recipe. And that really resonated with people. It's a fun shirt, good conversation starter. So it took off. And then, there was another one that just said set boundaries. That's literally all it said, set boundaries. Simple font, but it resonated with people, because I feel like a lot of times people struggle with that. And so those were my highest two sellers. I made decent revenue from that, but I knew that it wasn't sustainable, as a brand and as a business. So that was for a couple of reasons. First is Teespring's model isn't necessarily, especially where it stands today. I haven't really followed the evolution of it since I left the platform, but what I'm hearing overwhelmingly is that it's not seller friendly in terms of the percentage of profits you get, the return, the ROI, is not great compared to, moving to an independent platform. And I think more than anything, the fact that you're not necessarily seen or respected as a standalone brand because you're on their platform, really, led me to move forward and move to Shopify. And so with that said, I knew that when building this business that I wanted to know everything myself. I didn't want to necessarily outsource or delegate building on that platform because, in the event that, things change or evolve as they always tend to do, I didn't want to be, lost and, having to rely on someone else to get back to me and to tell me what's wrong with my site. And so, with that said, I researched everything and it did take a significant investment of time. The great thing about it is that, it's 2018 and the internet is free, and available to those who, are diligent about where to look. So I researched everything from, perfecting, my graphic design to hosting on Shopify to HTML coding to the psychology of e-commerce to really thinking about what separates the good from the great when it came to building my site. And the end result, of course, is, a site that I have today that is not only profitable, but it's also something that I'm proud of. There's, nothing on the site that I personally haven't touched. And I know that a lot of times that's a unusual strategy because, the common advice that people get is to stay in your lane, focus on what you're good at and delegate so other people, can help make you money. And I get that. Don't get me wrong. That is successful for a lot of people. But when it came to building this business, not only was I able to, maintain control and be knowledgeable about the business when deciding to outsource later on down the line, I can talk to designers about, the DPI, right? Like the quality of the print file. I can talk to, a webmaster about, moving buttons and product placement. I can talk to the printer about, the difference between the shirts that I'm using. And so with that said, having all of that product knowledge has helped me immensely. And it's also actually opened up another stream of income because now not only have I been able to design Shopify stores for other people, but I've also been able to share information like this in a paid platform and make revenue that way. So the investment of time and research has paid, triple fold. There are definitely tangible benefits to doing it my way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I started this podcast, it was the exact same thing. I I knew nothing of podcasts, and I knew nothing of website building or anything like that. And so I'll share a quick story of
Yeah.
the first thing I did when I started my podcast. I said, well, I want to have a standalone website. I don't build websites. My podcast is about supporting Black-owned businesses. And so I'm going to hire a Black-owned business to build me a website. And so I did that.
Yep.
And I haven't talked about this on the show up to this point, and I won't say any names, but we came to an agreement of $3,000 for this website. And I said, I'm not going to haggle with this Black-owned business. I'm going to pay the price for services rendered. And so we agreed on a contract. I paid half up front. I was supposed to have a website in 30 days. And 6 months later, I had no website. And I basically said, deliver me what you have now. I will give you the rest of your money so that we can just wash hands and separate. And then I stripped away all the things that he had, quote unquote, built. And then I built my website from scratch. Huge lesson in delegating and outsourcing, where had I just invested that time up front to learn WordPress, to learn how to build a website, I would have saved that money and I would have known how to build a website. And here recently I rebuilt my website, and it happened a lot quicker and a lot higher quality thing because I'd already done it once. So it's not a given that if you are the business owner who says, I'm going to let the people who are experts be experts and I'm going to focus on my thing. If you don't know at least a little bit about their thing, they can take you.
Yep.
So there's a lot to be said about going your direction and saying, I'm going to be the master of all things my business. Then when I outsource and delegate, I will know a quality person who I'm working with versus somebody who ain't bringing the goods. So definitely, I co-sign that entire sentiment right there. So you talked about learning everything yourself.
Sure.
What specifically, in your opinion, are 3 things that every business owner must do for themselves first before deciding to outsource later?
The first thing that immediately comes to mind is to identify your brand voice. I don't think a lot of times people, especially business owners, take time to hone that and make sure that it's an accurate reflection of who they are. Your brand voice is super important because it really defines everything. Your ad copy, your marketing materials, even the graphics that you use, how the website is built, the colors that you use, just really taking time to invest in knowing their brand and getting it down to the fine details. I think that's something that every business owner should know and be passionate about, because the last thing you want is a disconnect, between the product and the brand, or the product and the audience. And so by taking time to say, okay, I designed this product, or I created this product with this audience in mind, and I have to make sure my brand voice is speaking to them. That takes work, that takes effort, and it takes sometimes some, trial and error. It takes, risk. So making sure that that is, perfected is something every business owner should know. Another thing is accounting. You should know your money. You should know where the money's going, how it's coming in, how it's spent, what the actual costs are. And I think a lot of times people, get so caught up in the profit, they don't think about the actual net amount that they're taking home. So, if you look on your Shopify dashboard and see a ton of sales, you're like, okay, yeah, things are going great. But you have to take time to do the math to say, what are my actual expenses? Even when running ads, like on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest, you have to say, how much did this sale cost me? How much do I want a sale to cost me? Is this sustainable? Is this scalable? It may have gotten me, 20 sales, but if I'm going for 200 or 2,000, what kind of investment do I have to make? Is this, a really good margin. So you have to know the numbers. If you don't, you'll be lost, or you'll have a successful business that's not making you any money. And I see that all the time, and not just with small businesses, with, large ones. You see a lot of businesses that are popular, but they're not profitable. And you want to make sure that, you're actually making a profit when you're doing all of this activity. And then the third thing that I think every business owner should know is really, what is the exit plan? What is the intention when you're growing and scaling this business? It's not saying that you have to have all the answers at the start, but it's saying that you're putting some thought into it. You shouldn't build a business on the principle of, hey, let's start something and see where it goes. You should build it to say, okay, this is where I see it, going forward. A great example is right now, Passports and Purpose, we're focused in retail. So we want our shirts in boutiques, in actual boutiques, but they have to align with our brand, with our voice and our message. And, they have to cater to our clientele. So making sure, I wouldn't be able to do that without knowing what my brand is, who my audience is. Two, what my numbers are, so I know whether this is actually a profitable deal, as far as wholesale goes. And then three, knowing that I knew that this is where I wanted to go a year ago. And so now that's where my focus is, and I'm able to successfully delegate other activities so I can focus on that. But without a clear vision or a clear strategy, you'll be treading water for quite some time, when there's plenty of opportunity on the table to grow, or, even partner in a different direction. So you have to know those three things.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. And the exit plan one, you keep bringing up stuff that's taking us off of the outline, but it needs to be said. And we haven't had this conversation yet on the show. Exit plans for Black-owned businesses. We in our community have a horrible habit of holding business owners hostage and getting angry and mad and irate that a business owner who poured their soul into building a business would then cash out and move on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So you're right. I see it all the time. And, articles and recent developments, I can name companies, but, we'll keep it classy. But thinking about, the fury that you see in, people's comments, for me, there's a disconnect when you think about Black business owners versus anyone else. For some reason it's expected that we should live and die by our brand, and it just doesn't work that way. People of other backgrounds and cultures are able to reinvent themselves all the time, but it's controversial when we do it. So when you think about an exit plan, I think it's not saying that you'll have the end in mind at the beginning, but it's something that has to be discussed. And that's not only, for your edification, but also to make sure that the people that are partnering with you are on the same page, to say, okay, this is where we see ourselves going. And when I think about myself as a serial entrepreneur, you have to have that exit strategy in mind, one business that I built so far is, travel, and that's separately from the store. And it's only because, the mantra goes, when you're good at something, you don't do it for free. So with that said, I knew that one, I was only catering to a very specific clientele. And then two, that it was, a business that either I had to scale up or I had to put on the back burner. I knew that going in, only because the clientele that I focus on is, luxury experiences. I'm more of a concierge than just a travel agent. I'm creating all of these, exclusive memories, for very, very wealthy clients and their families. And so knowing that, one, I had to keep my client list small because there's a personal, handheld touch aspect that, it's not sustainable if I grow too soon, too fast. And then two, knowing that that is a full-time job. Like, it is a full-time job. So when you think about all the hours in the day, for example, the last client I had called me at 3 a.m. Chicago time because their visa wasn't filled out correctly. And so that's completely their fault, but you can't say, hey, I'm sleeping. It's not my problem. Yeah, because they're paying you a premium to have the answer. So with that said, that level of customer service, that level of care is, something that is only, sustainable up to a certain point. So I knew that going in. So what it looks like now is I'm not taking on any new clients. I'm not doing any advertising. I haven't had to advertise, for the, life of that business, only because it's, word of mouth. Once you're at, that income level, people like saying, oh, I have a person, right? Like I have a guy, right? That kind of thing. So, I haven't had to advertise, but at the same time, I say no a lot more than I say yes. And that comes back to setting boundaries. So when you think about exit plan, finding a successor to take on those clientele is not something that I'm doing right now, especially as we approach the holidays, but it is something that I'm actively considering going forward. And, but, making sure that they adhere to the same quality, the same standards, the same investment, and the same dedication. That's a tall order. And so, with that said, right now, my focus is on passports and purpose. And that's, what I see myself going forward. So the travel business, it's not on the back burner, but it's not something that I'm currently focused on either. So when I think about entrepreneurship and really tying myself to just one of my businesses, that's, I just can't see that happening, only because that, it's not a fair expectation. It's not.
Not
And
at all.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, when you think about somebody expecting you, Courtney, to be 65, 70 years old, and you're still running passports and purpose because you started it. It's a black-owned business. You got to do this, you got to do that, and it's just, I find that it's people who don't really understand business ownership and how businesses work who have those expectations. And so you kind of, do we have time to educate them, or do you have to just tune them out? But then also, when you talk about that exit planning, right? It's, like you said, finding a successor if you are going to just sell them the business so they can take over, or am I looking to be acquired by a larger company and they'll just give me a payout, they take my business, roll it into their brand, and I move on to the next project. Or, of course, that other way to exit is going to be trying to go public, right? Doing an IPO, and now you're selling shares to the general public. All of those things are goals of a business owner. I don't think any business owner goes into a business venture with the goal of, I'm going to die with this business, unless this is a family business and I'm going to teach and train my next generation to take it over. And even then, you're not waiting until quote unquote retirement age to do that, right? You want to be able to reap the fruits of your labor so that you can enjoy life after that first business. And then, hey, there might be another project. There might be another thing that I'm passionate about that I want to do later. My second career might be in building WordPress websites, because I found that I love that. But I don't so much know yet the perfect way to build out a website, especially an e-commerce website, so that people will want to click that buy button. And since I'm the king of segues, that's what I just did. Segued us into the next huge part of this conversation. You have built a beautiful site with passports and purpose, and it does make people want to find your product, click the buy button, and buy. And so talk to us about the 5 small details that you may be making on your website, folks who are watching inside of the chat, that are going to cause customers to run away from your site and never, ever, ever return. And if you're watching right now and you got a website and you got a second screen, you might want to pull your website up while Courtney is talking and question whether or not you got things going on the right way.
Yes. And so when I think about the 5 things, the 5 small details that can cause consumers to, just run away and never return, they're very, very subtle. And that's what I don't think a lot of people understand when they're building a website, because it's not if you build it, they will come. They have to come, they have to linger, they have to browse, they have to click around. And so it's really about creating a customer experience that is not only welcoming, but it's also incredibly, simple and efficient to get people to remove any kind of barriers to actually purchasing your product. And so the first one that I see in a lot of websites is just offering too many choices. And I think that new business owners or business owners that are new to e-commerce, they want to put everything on display. They're proud of everything that they're created. But when you give consumers too many choices and too, many things to browse between, they will not make a selection. They'll get overwhelmed and they'll click out. They'll be indecisive and they'll say, I'll come back later. It could be something as small as, how many colors of a shirt do I offer? I'm very intentional about that. For the men's shirts, I only offer 2 colors, blue and black. For the women's shirts, I offer 3, blue, black, and red. Every now and then I will release a special edition, a color like a pink or a purple or something. But primarily it's only, one color. And for the shirts that I have that go viral, most of the time they're only one color. I don't want one style, one color. It's a unisex shirt. It's only in black. This is what you get. That's all it is. Because you don't want people to think about it and say, oh man, if I get red, I can put it with this outfit. But if I get black, it'll look better. So I don't know. And so they'll get overwhelmed with too many choices. So if you're designing something like a shirt or a mug, or if you have a product, do not give them 10 to 12 options to choose from, because they'll just browse to see how it looks in every color, not make a decision, and go do something else. So giving them too many options. Yeah.
So just real quick, we're not going to be looking at my page. Just letting you know right now. When we do this review later on, just based on number 1, we ain't looking at the Buy Black Podcast Shop page, because I'm guilty. I've got this shirt in white, black, gray, and I was like, man, I need to get one for each one of the Greek colors. I need a blue and white one. I need a crimson and cream one. I need a purple and gold one. No. Okay, so we're not going to be looking at mine. What about number 2? What else? What other mistakes am I making on my shopping page, Courtney?
I think the second one is really common, especially as we approach the holiday season, is when a brand or a website doesn't have social proof. That means that they don't have any customer reviews, they don't have any customer selfies, they don't have any, customer quotes, any feedback that says, hey, someone in real life has purchased and is enjoying my product. Someone in real life has experienced, whatever it is I'm offering, whether that's a product or a service. So having testimonials, having customer reviews, having customers, post pictures or share their stories. It's really important because you want that social proof. If you go to a big website, like Amazon, and, you're browsing and choosing between 2 items, you're going to go for the one that has customer reviews, because you want that social proof. You want the proof of validation by saying, hey, someone else took the risk. They were the first ones to order it. Here's a picture of them with it. They liked it. They plan to buy again. Okay, someone has co-signed this particular product. So now I feel more confident in my purchase. You don't want And also it's important because customer reviews a lot of times answer questions you might not even know your customers have. So when it comes to t-shirts, a lot of my customers post reviews about the fit, which is really great because you have people of all shapes and sizes saying, hey, I wear this size and I bought this size, or, I chose unisex because the shirt's longer than it is for women and I have a long torso or something like that. So it's these really specific things that customers can relate to. They say, oh, hey, I'm pretty tall. Maybe I want a unisex shirt because it's, longer and I don't want, a crop top. So when you think about those things, it's important to get that data and feedback for not only, convincing them to check out, but also really alleviating any concerns that they may have. So social proof is a big one.
Awesome. And before we go to number 3, I want to jump into the chat real quick with everybody. Hey, so 2 quick things. If you have any questions for Courtney, as we are going through these 5 small details that you could be making on your website that make people run away, if you have questions, please drop them into the chat and we will definitely get to them. And the second thing that I want to do a little bit later on, we are going to be doing kind of a live review of MikeD'sBarbecue.com. But if you are watching right now and you have an e-commerce website and you would like to have that website reviewed live, we'll probably take a few minutes to do it for the first 1, maybe 2 of you that get that link into the chat. So definitely wanted to put that out there. And Courtney, I will hand it back over to you.
Sure. So the third thing that a lot of people don't realize is a major obstacle is when your website has too many pages. And what that means is if there's a page to go to the product, then a page to add to cart, then a page to enter in your shipping information, then a page to enter in your billing information. At any one of those stages, a customer can just abandon it altogether and say, you know what, this is too much. I'm bored already. I've already changed my mind. I'm moving on to something else. I'm distracted. I'm otherwise occupied. So if you have too many pages between adding to cart and then checking out, then you'll lose customers along every step of the way. And a lot of times those customers are harder to get back because either you're not able to retarget them because they haven't really entered in any of their personal information. And if you don't have cookies enabled, then you're unable to, track them elsewhere on the web. So, with that said, when you have people abandon their carts and not come back, that could be why. It's just too tedious to get through your website. The excitement you had when you first put something in the cart has worn off, because you're at the 4th page and you're still not done checking out. And so that's something that people don't realize. You can say, oh, I'm being thorough, but at the same time, there are so many easier ways to, just check out and be done with it because people lose interest. They get distracted. So that's a big one.
So you want to get them to click that checkout button while they're still hot. And that is one of the things that I've heard from other places is, okay, now you've got your sales process there. Now figure out how you can minimize the number of clicks. Because that's really what it comes down to is how many times do I have to click that button in order for me to actually buy your thing? And especially when you're talking about the number of pages, how many pages do I have to wait to load for me to make that purchase? Yeah. That's a huge reason why Amazon, as soon as Amazon, they made Prime happen and then they got the 1-click buy. I mean, yep. That's money right there because all I got to do is just, I'm like, ooh, I like it. 1 click and they've got my money, right? Because I'm already a Prime customer. So they already have me on file. And it's almost crazy when you think about saying, how do you make more money? You make it easy for people to give it to you. And that's really what Amazon has done. They made it super easy for me to give them my money. So I'm more inclined to want to give them my money. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
It's brilliant. And so, thinking back to Amazon, that 1-click ordering, I mean, that is, the pinnacle of efficiency, right? That's really what you want because if you think about, a traditional website that has too many pages, every time you click, you're saying, okay, yeah, I want it. I still want it. Rather, compared to Amazon, it's that 1-click impulse buy. I want it and I want it now. So you're done. They already have your money. Everything's already done. But every time you're clicking through, a tedious, long website, you have to say, okay, I want it. Yeah, I still want it. All right, okay, I guess. The excitement wears off.
Yeah.
And, by the time you got the third page, you're like, I don't want it that bad, never mind. And so, with that said, by being able to streamline that as much as possible, that'll definitely get you more sales.
Love it. All right. What's the fourth thing that we making mistakes on? I knew the clicks one. I knew the pages. All right. So not too bad on that. What do we got at number 4?
Crowded design. That is huge. Efficient e-commerce websites are simple, especially when you think about, specialty products or, small businesses. You want your product to be front and center, and you don't really want a whole bunch of noise on the page. A lot of times, again, when people are first designing websites, they want all the bells and whistles. They want all these pop-ups. They want some stuff flashing in the corner. They want, to again show every option that they've ever even thought about. It's just too much. It's too much noise. It can overwhelm a customer. If they're coming to your site, they're coming for a reason. They want to spend some money. And so you show them the product, and if you have it on the product page, like all the benefits and the social proof, like the reviews and, people wearing it, if that's all on the same page, then they're already convinced. They should just want to add to cart. They don't need a lot of other activity around it. So you want the product, the proof, and how to buy it. That's pretty much it.
I love it. So talking about crowded design, so I've flipped over right now. The folks who are in the chat, they're actually looking at your website as I'm scrolling down across it. But that's another thing that I've heard when it comes to designing, and not just for e-commerce, but designing a web page, is more white space in general. A lot of times we want, like you said before, we want to put everything out there, and we want to be as efficient as possible when it comes to giving people our stuff. But when you don't have a lot of white space on your page in between, say, your calls to action or those key headlines that you have, people really don't know what you want them to do. I don't know what you want me to do. There's a lot of stuff here. And so it's hard for them to find either the buy button or the call to action button when you don't have enough white space going on.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that if you have more to add on white space, and then let us know what that fifth detail is that we need to be looking for.
Sure. I think you really hit the nail on the head when it came to, people just being confused and undecided and saying, I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to look at this? Do you want me to go here? Both of these things appeal to me. I don't know where to click first. Anything that causes, even small moments of frustration or indecision will cause people to just abandon it altogether. Especially in, this day and age, people are primed to have short attention spans. Like, that's just the way the internet is. It is very immediate, and it is very, efficient. Like, this is it. So even, things is the slow loading times, which you already touched on. That is a big obstacle. So you can't say, let me just put these huge, files on my website and, hope that people are taking the time to load, because the average time is less than 3 seconds. So if your website takes less than 3 seconds to load, you've already lost customers and you don't even know it. Like, that's a big one. People expect to see things right away. So for my website, there are 2 examples. One, I've optimized all of my files to load quickly. So even though if you're looking from a computer, some of the pictures are really large, they actually aren't that in file size. So, by intentionally reducing the size without sacrificing the quality, because there are ways to do that on the back end, I get my site to load faster. But when you think about the product page, so if you click on any of the products, there's a ton of white space. It's very, very simple. It's very plain. And that's intentional because, you see the product on the left, you see the description and the, add to cart on the right. And that's a specific color that's on brand. That's our brand colors. And, you see some stuff at the bottom, some other products, but the page itself is white. And again, that's because because people like simple, people like efficient. They do not like a lot of visual noise. And so when you have too much of that, they'll get overwhelmed. And you want to make it as easy as possible, like you said, for them to give you money. And, by having a very, direct saying, okay, this is the only action I really want you to take on this page for this product, then, you're already ahead of the game. So that's a huge one when it comes to e-commerce. You want to make it easy for them. It has to be easy. If it's not, you're losing money.
Absolutely. All right. Fifth thing, the fifth final detail. Let's see if Gerald wins the game. I can get 3 out of 5.
So the last one, again, is incredibly subtle, but some websites get it wrong. And at this point, it's almost, jarring if you see it out of place. It's the placement of the buy button. It should be on the right towards the bottom. That's where people expect to see the add to cart button, the buy button. It's because, the Western world reads from left to right, so they expect the action to be on the right. So, for example, can you think of any website that has the buy button on the left and the product on the right? No. And if you can, let me know and we'll review it in real time. But honestly, the buy button should be, vivid color, should be on brand. If you can't think of, anything on brand, make it red, have it draw people's attention, but it should be towards, the bottom, and on the right side. So if it's anywhere else, above the product, eye level with the product, it just confuses people. I've seen, real tests, because there are tools that you can use to see how people are browsing and navigating your website, where people will scroll. If it's anywhere else, they will scroll right past it and say, I don't know how to check out. I don't even want it anymore. This is stupid. And just like abandon the whole process.
And it's like right there.
Yeah, it's right there. Like, wait, you pass it twice, and it's mental thing. It's the psychology of e-commerce. So if you put the button anywhere else, they just don't know how to cope, and that's just the average consumer. So it's no shade, to people's intelligence levels, but it's born out of habit. If the overwhelming majority of sites are built that way with the buy button on the bottom right, then, anywhere else is, just going to seem odd. So again, pointing back to Amazon, the buy button is on the right, or it's right. Yeah, it's, where it should be. If you think about, I don't know, Walmart or, a store, Old Navy, whatever it is, right? The buy button is always on the right. So, small businesses or businesses that are just starting out, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like, it's there for a reason. Don't say, I want to make it completely different and I want to think outside of the box. That is costing you real money. So button placement is a really big one, because again, people don't want to ask themselves, what am I supposed to be doing on this page? Or how do I move to the next step? I just don't understand. I just don't get it. So when you think about, the mechanics of that, you have to put the buttons in the right place.
Golden. I love it. And we have a question from the chat. Nyla, my beautiful wife, has asked the question, use a WordPress template or build your site from scratch. What should a new business owner invest in first?
That's a great question. I would say it's been my experience. If you know your website is going to be primed for e-commerce, then you want to build it on an e-commerce platform. If you know that your website is primarily about giving folks content and then adding e-commerce, then focus on the content, to build a following, to build a brand, to get people primed to buy whatever you're selling, and then add the e-commerce portion at the end. But it's really about intent. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but thinking about how you see the business growing. A great example for Passports and Purpose is that, next year in the first quarter, we're going to launch a blog, just to talk about our customer stories. I get them all the time. I share them in our newsletter. I share them, on our Facebook platform, but people, they revisit them, like I've had people tell me, I save your emails, just because they're great. And so I'm like, okay, I should probably, have these live somewhere on the site. And so, but with that said, my site was built to sell things, and the blog came, is it like a couple years later. So if it's the reverse, then focus on that and make sure that that's a great experience, and then add the e-commerce portion.
I love it. I love that. And so with that, I want to transition us into this review. So have you got the Mike D's barbecue site up?
I do. All
right.
Yeah, this is.
So I'm about to switch it over, transition. So now the people who are watching the live stream, including Mike, he said he was driving, but he was going to pull it up when he got home. So hopefully he's made it home and he's able to actually see the review that we've gotten. If not, he'll be able to come back and watch the video later. So yeah, take it over. Ooh. Talk to us about the setup here with Mike's site. What's he got going good? What can he improve? Let's do it. For the purpose of saving time and to make sure that you can get the full effect of the reviews, I have not included that segment in the audio version of the podcast. But if you go to buyblackpodcast.com/67, there will be a video of us doing a screen share as Courtney goes through and she provides feedback so that you can actually make the comparisons to Mike D's website, my website, and your website and make changes accordingly. So let's go ahead and get back to the show. And so with that, I want to go into, we've gone very long with these reviews. I'm sorry to have taken up so much time, but I want to go into the last part of the show, which is just a few questions I have for you. And again, to the folks watching, if you have any questions for Courtney, definitely drop those into the chat. But the first question I want to ask you is, what's the biggest challenge that you ever faced? And what did you learn from it, or how did you overcome it?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say I'll cheat a bit and say that answer is twofold. The first was taking the leap to migrate from Teespring to Shopify. That was huge because, again, I took time to learn every step of the business myself. I took time to, learn how to build a website on the back end and make sure that it was not only good, but it was great. And the reason that was challenging is because by nature, I'm definitely a perfectionist. But a lot of entrepreneurs are. And so the challenge in that is that you never want, to have the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? So, without, pushing myself to just hit launch, to hit publish, I would have agonized over it for months and, lost money in the process. And so, that was definitely challenging because, I had to get over myself and say, you know what, we're just going to put it out there. We're just going to do it. And then we can always tweak it later. But, I can't stay in limbo, for this long because I know that I'm losing money. So that was definitely challenging. And it's something that, has become easier since, just putting it out there and then, tweaking it later. Not to say that I'm putting out anything subpar, but at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, I'm not agonizing over every single detail and, letting that cost me money. And so, that was a huge challenge. And I would think the second, biggest challenge that people don't realize is in the marketing. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to build something, I'm going to create something, and then the people will just come because I'm just that awesome. And that is just not true. Marketing, is the next step. So like, for example, when I built the website and launched it, people were congratulating me like, oh, it's finally over. You did it. And I'm like, no, this is the beginning, like I've launched it and now I need to market. And that's something that you have to do consistently, in order to make sure that people know who you are and that people remember who you are. And so, taking the time to really build a brand, to build a community of fans has really helped that come a long way. But without the momentum, without the drive, then people, can build something and no one will know about it. Like, you have to push, you have to let people know, you have to really infuse it in all kinds of conversations. And be bold about it, like, don't say, oh yeah, this doesn't really relate, or oh yeah, this might not, this isn't the right time. It's always the right time to talk about something that you've created and something you're proud of. So don't let, imposter syndrome like get in the way of that.
I love it. I love it. So the next question I like to ask is tools. We all, when we are building something from scratch, we are looking for those tools that save us time and energy and money. What are maybe one or two of your favorite tools that you use to run your business and save you time, energy, and money?
Sure. So the first thing that immediately comes to mind is my planner. I'm very old school. For everything that is technologically advanced and automated, one of the things I'm still very old school about is having a physical, tangible planner. And so the planner that I have is, it's called the Passion Planner. And it's was actually founded as a Kickstarter project, and it grew to an independent company. So their journey in and of itself is inspiring. But what's amazing about the planner is that it forces me to structure my day. There's areas for personal goals, areas for professional goals. There's literally slots for every 30-minute segment of the day. So I have to think about, how am I spending my time? Like, did I just waste 10 minutes scrolling on Instagram when I could have been doing something else? Or, is this an investment in my self-care? So not only are there areas for personal and professional goals, there's also space to reflect on, what went good that week, what do you want to focus on this week, a quote to really motivate you and push you forward. And so, I'm very intentional about setting my time, setting my month, setting my week, setting my quarter. There's prompts and questions to reflect on how the month went, how the quarter went, how does it align with your goals? So it forces accountability. And that's something that has been incredible in being as productive as I am in managing, like all of these moving parts. So that's something that is actually saved me a lot of time. And the good thing that I like about it is that it is a physical planner. So if I'm writing down a goal, that means that I have to physically look at it at the top of the page until it's done. I can't just put it on the back burner and say, oh, if it's a reminder that pops up on my phone, for instance, I can't just dismiss and snooze it. No, I have to stare at that unfinished goal until I check it off of my list. And that personally is motivating to me. And it's led to me accomplishing a ton of things, both personally and professionally. So that's one of my favorites. The second thing.
Absolutely. It's real quick. I'm sorry. I'll give you the second thing, but just as you were just talking, I don't know if you can see behind me my whiteboard with my Post-it notes up there. I can't work with a planner, but I need a Kanban board. So I use my whiteboard for the exact same thing. I put the tasks on the Post-it notes. I put them up there and I move them from backlog through working to complete. And the amount of stuff I get done when I use that board in a period of time, it's how I rebuilt this entire website twice. Was using the Kanban board to tell me these are the tasks you're going to get done today. And then however much time it took me to learn those tasks through Googling and then actually do those tasks, I knew I was going to get them done that day, because if I didn't, it would still be staring at me in the working column. So yeah, you're right. Just physically having to look at something is huge. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So what was the second thing? What was the second tool you love?
No, I'm actually glad you did because one of the many hats that I wore in my corporate career was doing, human resources, career consulting, really being a jill of all trades in a manufacturing environment. And so when you talk about that board, I've seen it play out
Yeah.
in real time. And, just seeing it, maximize efficiency. Like I'm really passionate about lean thinking and lean operations. So I can honestly talk about that all day. Like I'm even a certified auditor in that
Nice.
arena. So yeah, you're definitely preaching to the choir there. So I saw the posts at the beginning and I was definitely going to bring them up as far as, being, organized and efficient and really being self-aware of your time. I don't think a lot of people realize how much time they waste in transitioning from one task to another, transitioning from one area to another, or even like the mental transition from one thing to another. People don't realize that there's a lot of waste there. So when it comes to being streamlined and maximizing efficiency, I am definitely an advocate. And we could be here another half hour if you got me started on
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of videos on Kanban and the processes because a lot of people, all it takes is that visual representation and the pulling of a
Yep.
task into work that makes their brain clicks over into, I'm doing this now. And then pulling it to complete, pulling another thing into working, their brain makes that flip of, I am doing this now. And you're so right. It cuts down all right, well, I'm going to play a game for about 10 minutes and then I'll go to the next thing. No, you can immediately make the psychological switch from this to this to this to this. All right, we won't be here for another half hour. We can table the Kanban. What else you got on tools?
I would say email automations, like email funnels. That is huge in terms of saving time because it makes sure that my customers hear from me, that they see the brand in their inbox on a consistent basis without me having to do much of anything. So I have funnels for people that have abandoned carts. I have funnels for my VIPs. I have funnels to welcome customers and thank first time customers, for purchasing a product. So it's a great way to stay connected to customers and even potential customers without me having to manually sit and craft emails at the mercy of my schedule. That's just not practical. And, one thing that people don't realize is that you have to be consistent. I can know for a fact that there are small businesses out there that have not sent anything to their customers all year and are preparing to like pepper them with Black Friday emails, with Christmas emails, with holiday emails. And that's just not a good experience on the receiving end. So, it's just thinking about like a friendship. Like if I haven't heard from you in 6 months, but now you want something from me, around Christmas time, you're not going to get it. So, just being consistent over time, you definitely can automate that. And that's something that has saved me a ton of time, led to sales, and, kept the relationship alive.
Which one of the sales funnel tools do you use? What's your email automation through?
MailChimp. Yep. Keep it simple. Well, yeah.
MailChimp, I use the same one for my Buy Black podcast, although I am just now starting to do email campaigns because I hate writing. And so yeah, that's why I started a podcast. Like I can talk all day long, but when you tell me to write, I will analyze every word and it takes me a day. So, but it is very simple and very customizable for free, which is great. All right. So, coming to the end of this thing, what can we do for you? What have you got going on with Passports and Purpose or with your other purpose out there in the community helping people? And what can our podcast audience do for you? And how can they get in contact with you to do those wonderful things?
Well, sure. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So, as far as what you can do for me, the answer is twofold. The first, when you think about my passion for the community and helping others, I think, especially as entrepreneurs or subject matter experts, that we tend to hold on to information. So, by investing in someone else, in someone new, by mentoring them, by taking time to be vulnerable, to reach out, to build a connection, to build a relationship, that's one of the best ways you can give back. People don't realize how much they know until they encounter someone that doesn't know any of that. And so, by taking time to invest in someone and give back, and it doesn't have to be a huge time investment, but, if you're consistent by saying, okay, you know what, I can give an hour a week towards talking to someone about something that I'm an expert in, or I can, meet quarterly in person with someone, that wants to be in the same career field that I'm in. That's huge. That makes a difference. And, I think people take it for granted that, oh, well, if you want to know, you can just look it up yourself. And it's not to say that initiative isn't valuable, but there's nothing like talking to someone that has been through the same journey that you want to start. And so, by giving back, by taking time to sow into someone else, that is incredibly powerful. And then the second is, of course, to visit the website, passportsandpurpose.com. Sign up for our email list. Everyone listening to the podcast now has access to an exclusive discount code. The discount code is BuyBlack5, and by entering that in, you will get $5 off any order, no minimum. So, it's free money, a gift from me to you. Definitely, take time to browse the site, to, enjoy. If you have any questions, you can always, shoot me an email at hello@passportsandpurpose.com. I answer all of those in real time. I'm definitely big on customer service. Also, if you go to the site, there is an icon to shoot me a message on Facebook Messenger. So if you're more of a chatter than an emailer, if you have a quick question about fit or size or color, take time to just shoot me a message, and I will definitely respond in real time. And so, above anything, make sure that you sign up for the email list. I am definitely preparing for Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Sell Something Sunday, Cyber Monday. And so are a lot of awesome, unheard of discounts, as well as first access to what we're calling the secret lab, where all of the prototypes live. So that means, by signing up for the email list, you will get first dibs and first access to products that aren't even live yet. Right now, I can say we're having close to a dozen products that have never seen the light of day that will be available exclusively to our email subscribers. And when I say new products, I'm talking new designs and also new items. For example, there are no mugs on the website right now, but there are in the secret lab. We're prototyping backpacks, prototyping leggings, so if you want first pick and first dibs, because they are produced in limited qualities, make sure that you sign up for the email list. When you visit the website, passportsandpurpose.com, a nice little pop-up prompts you to sign up for the email list. If you closed out of that, just scroll down to the bottom. There's a prompt to sign up for the email list there as well. But make sure that you sign up so you get access to new items, exclusive, very, very steep discounts. And that's why I said it's important to know your numbers earlier in the show, to make sure that that I can, still make a bit of a profit. But with that said, as far as, consumer goes, discounts that I've never done in the history of Passports and Purpose will be live on Black Friday. So make sure to sign up.
I love it. Definitely get on the email list. And so that brings us to our final question of the show. And that question is, what is your number one piece of advice for the Buy Black podcast listening community as a whole?
I would say take the leap. That is something that I see people just be afraid to do. I see people, very talented, incredibly bright people, talk themselves out of opportunities all the time. So, take the leap. Entrepreneurship is a very vulnerable state, because you're actually putting your face on something that you created and you want other people to like as well. But you have to get over yourself. You have to take the leap. You have to put it out there. It can open up so many doors, so many opportunities. It can teach you new things about yourself that you didn't even know. So, more than anything, take the leap, take some risk, be able to do it. One thing that I share about, Passports and Purpose is that when I founded it, I didn't necessarily have to spend a lot of overhead. My main investment was my time. So you can't say, oh, I can't afford to start a business. Yeah, you can if you invest your time. The knowledge is out there. The resources are out there. It's, not like I'm sitting, on a trust fund or a nest egg. I definitely, took the DIY route and made it happen. So especially, in this day and age, the opportunities are out there. So any excuse you think you have, saying I don't have enough time. When I started Passports and Purpose, I was also working a full-time job. I owned another company and, being active in the community. So when I say I was stretched thin and am stretched thin, it's a very real aspect of the business, but I still make time to do it, like the time that we're taking now. And so when you think about that, by investing your time, the rewards will be incredible. So take the leap, start something, create something. That's actually the shirt I'm wearing now from the store. Create what you don't see. So if you see a need, in the community, if you see a need in the marketplace, make it, create it. If you have no idea where to start, the answers are out there for you, but you won't be able to find them if you don't take the leap.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And for everybody listening live and everybody who is also going to be listening later when the podcast comes out, if you have questions about travel, if you want to know more about those secret sites, you need to reach out to Courtney. Again, that was hello@passportsandpurpose.com. And
Yes.
obviously go to the website, sign up for the email list first, and then take a look at those products and click the buy button on those products. Courtney, thank you so much for sharing everything you share with us today. You're definitely going to change the way that I develop my website here going forward. I know our listeners who have their own e-commerce sites have picked up at least 5 major tools that are going to help them make a whole lot more money. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help business owners and entrepreneurs do a better job of taking care of their customers, making more money. So ultimately we can take control of this Black economy. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you for joining me, Courtney. And yeah, I think that's it. We're out.
Yeah.